Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Lucky Few podcast where we are shifting the narrative by shouting the worth of people with Down syndrome. This is Heather, and Mercedes and Micah are off this week, but I am very much looking forward to today's conversation with Jen Bartz, who is doing big things to change the healthcare system for our little ones with Down syndrome. She has an incredibly powerful story that we cannot wait to hear. Thank you so much for joining, friends, and welcome to the Lucky Few podcast. Hi friends, Heather here, and I know I don't have to tell you how challenging this school year has been. Every day I sit back trying to get work done while I watch my kids' teachers do an impossible task, which in our home we are calling distance learning. As a former educator myself, I know a little gratitude goes a long way. So our team here at the Lucky Few created some simple yet beautiful printables as a way to say thank you to all the educators in our lives. They're available to you as well. Simply head over to theluckyfew.com and click on the Thank a Teacher link at the top of the page to download your prints. If you're one of the lucky ones who is actually sending your child to school for in-person learning, I'm very jealous, but you can attach the note to a plant or a gift card to a favorite local coffee shop, or you can just simply add the note to an email thanking your teacher for all his or her hard work. Because after all, gratitude is always free. So thank you, teachers, for all that you do. All right, so Jen, welcome. Welcome to the Lucky Few podcast. So grateful that you're here today and that you're going to take the time to talk to us. Can you just start with an introduction? Who are you? Where are you right now? And tell the listeners and me a little bit more about you and your family and what it is you do.
Yeah, I'm Jen Bartz, and I'm James's mom, first and foremost. I have 3 other children besides James, and then my husband is also a James. And then I guess the biggest part of my story and why I'm here is because James has Down syndrome. I adopted him through the Rio Grande Down Syndrome Network. And he passed away when he was 4 years old, about 2 years ago now. And out of that experience of having a medically complex child with a disability as well, I realized that there's a lot of work that needed to be done, and that instead of just being angry about it, that I could do something. So my husband and I founded a new nonprofit called Heroes Path Palliative Care. And we're trying to bring palliative care services to families with seriously ill children in New Mexico. So we're really excited about that. In 2 days, it will be our 1-year anniversary of that nonprofit being founded. So a lot of work has gone into it, but he continues to inspire so many people, my son James, and that's why it's successful. So I'm thankful to be able to share about him.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much for talking to us about this. And how old are your other 3 kiddos?
I have she's almost 12, my oldest, Jada, and she's read both of your books.
Oh, Jada. Hi, Jada. Good girl.
And yeah, she's totally got the adoption heart, and having a brother like James made her really care about inclusion. And then Jonah is 10, and he's a good guy too. And then my 8-year-old is Janelle, and she's real spunky and hilarious.
I love that. My middle daughter is 9, so maybe it's like an 8-9-year-old thing, that spunk. Yeah. Sometimes I think with her, I think this is like very unique to her. And then we spend time with kids her age. I'm like, oh no, you guys are all just a little strange in the way that you talk to each other and me. I love it.
Yes.
I love that. So you have a lot on your plate right now. What is New Mexico doing for school? Or what's your school? Or what are you doing for school right now with everything happening?
So the biggest school district in the state is the Albuquerque public school system, and they decided to do online learning through the end of the year, but the Department of Education has allowed each individual school district to make their own decisions based on when they meet the gating criteria. So our school district out here in the mountains, they're allowed to do a hybrid model. My kids were enrolled in a really great charter school out here, but we decided to homeschool this year just because I wanted some good stability for my kids and not have to switch back and forth all the time. And I've homeschooled before, so it wasn't difficult for me to transition back to homeschooling.
Yeah.
Especially since the last time I homeschooled, James was still alive, and that was I figured if I could do it then, I can do it now. So,
Definitely. Definitely. That's good. I know a lot of people have chosen I know a lot of people who have decided that homeschool is going to be their best bet for this school year, at least, just for very similar reasons. I think it's smart if you can do it, for sure. Okay.
mm-hmm.
All right. I'd love for you to explain to me and all of our listeners, what is palliative care?
So palliative care is care for people with a serious illness, and it can be at any stage of the illness. So it can be at diagnosis on, and a lot of times a lot of it is about symptom and pain management, and making sure that the person has quality of life. These aren't people who are hospice qualified. These are people who just have a lot going on that they need better management of their health care. So for my son, a lot of his problems was that as a little toddler, a lot of doctors don't understand how to treat pain, and he had a lot of pain. And he had a lot of very strange symptoms as well. So a lot of doctors had a very hard time knowing how to deal with that. So for kids, especially when pain it's not very common for kids to have chronic pain. So I think it's really, really helpful, especially for pediatrics, that there's somebody who has been trained and understands how to deal with pain and troubling symptoms for kids. And then that they have the social and economic, emotional and spiritual support that they need when they're facing a serious illness. So my son had a trachea event. He had chronic lung disease. He had seizures. He had all sorts of problems that interacted with each other and made it very complex and difficult. So it would have been really nice to have somebody be able to look at him as a whole and say, this is what we should do, and this is how we support what the family's values are and what the child needs, because it's very person to person centered, even more so than our standard medical practice. So, and we're hoping to do that in people's homes, because they just do so much better than in a clinic setting, especially if there's a lot of the trauma involved for kids who've been in there. A lot of these children are in and out of the hospital all the time, and they have trauma related to that. So having it being home-based is really vital too. There's just not very many programs yet who's been able to go from hospital-based to home-based for pediatrics.
Okay. Is there a timeline on palliative care? Like versus like, so for example, my oldest daughter had open heart surgery. We're dealing with things, but it's for a very short period of time. But then also goes on in that for her whole life, she'll need echocardiograms. But what's the difference then in that care versus the care that James needed?
I think that a lot of it is just the severity of it. So if there's a lot of impact to daily living, especially, I think hopefully in the future, there will be more and more programs and people like your daughter would qualify. But until that happens, there's more of a narrowing of the definition so that they take referrals of kids who have a really big impact to their daily living and how they can manage having a quality of life for that. So I think the big dream I have is that all children who have something that they're dealing with long term like that they would have this care
Okay.
and that the families would have that extra support, because that's really what it is it's extra support for not only the child but for the family members, including siblings. But for now, I think it's a lot more narrow. Each program can define their own criteria for who is referred, and so it's more geared towards who really has a big impact to their everyday life.
Okay. And when you say each program can determine that, are you meaning like programs within hospital settings and or within the medical setting, or programs like Heroes Path, or both?
Yeah, so they kind of distinguish palliative care programs based on community based, which is home based or clinic based,
Okay.
or hospital based. So if your child is in the hospital and they have chronic long term conditions that make it really impactful on the whole family, then palliative care would be a really good thing to have in the hospital setting, because you're looking at how whatever's happening in the hospital is going to impact long term. As far as the home based and the clinic based, that's more of making sure that outside of that those children are given the best kind of care, so they avoid going to the hospital and they avoid going to the urgent care and the emergency room. So those programs are different in that it's just the day-to-day, making sure that their care is managed as much as it can be from the home, and not because a lot of these kids are in the hospital for much of their life, and just making sure that it can be better managed and not as traumatic for them or for the family.
And then can you tell myself and our listeners more about Heroes Path? So we know your
Yeah,
inspiration, but what is it that you guys are doing right now? What are your big long-term dreams? Tell us more what Heroes Path is and does.
yeah. So we right now, the way it works is you need to raise quite a bit of money before you can start a palliative care program, just because, like other specialties, insurance doesn't always cover everything. So while we're trying to raise millions of dollars, um, we are also trying to think about right now, what do these families need in terms of how COVID is affecting them. So a lot of
Mm,
these families are homebound, and
yeah.
they're used to that, and that medically fragile families usually are homebound from October through April every year. They just, for cold and flu season, they isolate just like we all experienced, and it was really fun. But that's just what they expect every year. And then they expect in the summer we can get out and do fun things as a family again, and we can be a part of the community. Obviously, that hasn't happened this year. So we know as an organization that these families are under a tremendous amount of stress, and that not being able to have that kind of break because of safety issues, and knowing that if their child gets COVID, it would be very dire. They're even more stressed than normal. So we're hoping to do a respite night where we bring in a food truck to an open space, so outdoors, and we bring in some sort of adult type entertainment, like an artist or music or something, to kind of give the parents a date experience, but outdoors, and everybody's wearing PPE and things like that. And then the kids, including the siblings, would be able to go just a little bit further so the parents can still see them, but they'd be able to go and have food, and then an educational, a nature-based education program that a friend of mine does as her business. And so a lot of these kids are homebound for education, which is really rough.
Yeah.
They actually were really happy in the spring, these families were, because they were like, oh, I felt like my kid was really included with the distance learning. So
Yeah.
if that tells you anything about how it is to have homebound education, it's pretty rough. So we want to make sure that we provide an opportunity for the kids to have educational enrichment and the stay-in time. And then that the siblings also feel like they are important and included, and they can make really good memories with their sibling. So we hope to do that starting in October, and we're trying to iron out all the details and make sure we're not breaking any rules. Because that would be really bad for a new nonprofit to get.
Right. For the
So
CDC to hammer down, right?
yes, we don't want that kind of press. So,
No.
so we're hoping to do that, and then we're continuing to work on legislative action items that so that people can understand more about what palliative care is and how it would improve people's lives here.
Okay.
And then we also long-term want to make a respite house and a hospice house. So there's 3 places that the viewers can look up and even support if they want to. But one is Ryan House in Phoenix, Arizona. Another is Crescent Cove in Minnesota. And then the other is George Mark in California. And if you look at that, that's kind of the vision we have for New Mexico, is having a respite home where these children can go and have just an amazing experience while the parents and other siblings can go have a break. And then to also use it for when families need a place and they don't want it to be in their home for their child to pass away. So we have really big dreams, and so that part of it is probably 10 years out. But we're hoping we can get palliative care services started within a year or 2.
Yeah. How closely do you work with your local hospitals?
Right now, we're communicating with both of the main children's hospitals here. We're trying to sort out insurance and things like that as well, and Medicaid. And one of them has a really strong, there's only one hospice program for children in the state of New Mexico. And they do a great job. And they're trying to get some palliative care services started as well. They would start with 5 kids, and it would be basically their hospice children who have graduated. And so we're really excited to see what happens there, because if they can be successful, that encourages us to get our program going and be able to keep continuing to collaborate with them. So I think everybody is really excited. They really want these services for these kids. Even the insurance companies do. So that gives me hope. It's just putting in a lot of time and effort.
Definitely. Yeah, it sounds like a huge lifelong commitment that you have made for the betterment of so many people and families. And you have a background in medicine.
My medical experience is mostly from my son. I have a psychology degree, and then I worked in college as a nursing assistant. So I have a good handle on lingo, and I know some ethics stuff. But yeah, it helps, because if you can speak the same language as the medical professionals, it's a little easier to have them understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So for parents who are listening who are not in New Mexico and they're thinking, like, they're just in tears right now because this all just resonates so much with them, I mean, what would be twofold, like a word of encouragement to them, and then even like, what is the next step if they think this is something that I'm in desperate need for, but I'm not getting it, I don't even know where to start? What would you say?
I think the first thing you can do is tell your PCP, your child's primary care provider, that you really want your child to receive palliative care. And if they don't know how to access that, you can look up getpalliativecare.org. And there's a search you can do to see if there's any programs available in your state. There may not be a pediatric program, but you can certainly call the adult one if there's an adult one near you, and just say, look, I have a child, this is our story, and let them know you really want pediatric palliative care, because a lot of adult programs really want to expand into helping children, because there's more and more need as children live longer, and our medical advances help them to be able to survive even really catastrophic events.
Mhm.
So I think those are the two things that I would do. And just know that if you just want to share your story with me and you just want somebody to listen to your story and cry with you, I'm here for you. You can contact me
Mhm.
personally. I will make time for you. If you have any need at all and you just don't know where to start, I can help you. I can look it up. I'm pretty connected in the palliative care world right now, and I can let them know there's families who need this in your area, for whoever I can connect with. And so I can help advocate with you. I know it's exhausting as parents to continually advocate, and sometimes against things we have no idea how to advocate for. So I am here to help with that. I don't really care if you're not in New Mexico. I'll help you if you're in Alaska. I'll help you if you're in New York. So I think it's important, as you know, Heather, to just be able to let people tell their stories and
Yeah,
for them to be heard. You
absolutely.
took your course on that, so there's a
Oh,
plug.
amazing. Own your story.
Yes.
I love that you took that course. I'd like to ask you more questions about your experience, but that's another podcast or another conversation.
Well, I started to do the just like Zoom meetings with people and sharing their stories, just because I was just inspired by your class.
I love that. That's
So
amazing.
I thought these families need to be able to share what they're going through. And so
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I think that the power of community, or knowing that there is somebody, because I know even just in a special needs or in a disability setting, there can be such a strong feeling of isolation. And I would imagine when you're actually physically isolated because of your child's needs, how compounded that is. And so this feels like such an important and necessary conversation, I think, both for people who have children or loved ones who need palliative care. But then I know for those of us who don't, I'm not in that category right now. It's important too. And I would love for you to speak to that part of the audience. Like what is it that we can do? And I'll say, when I say we, I mean moms, dads, caregivers of our loved one with Down syndrome who love this community, right? Who are a part of this Down syndrome community at a larger level. What can we do? How can we show up for our community at large?
I think one of the things that I'm so impressed with is the Down syndrome community. I think we have a really good way of reaching out, and in non-judgmental ways usually. Like, I haven't ever felt like anything anyone said to me was difficult to hear from
Mm.
that community. I think we have extra understanding and care and compassion when we talk to people who maybe they aren't going through the same thing we are, but I think we can have the empathy it takes to know how to respond to that. And I just think continuing to, if if you think somebody is isolated in this way, and you think their child has more medical needs than yours, to just ask if they need you to pick up groceries for them, ask if they need maybe a toy for the siblings to play with, like just to remember the siblings, remember the parents, maybe get them some Sherry's berries or something, because they probably are not going to have a date for years,
Mm.
because in order to get a date, they need to get a nurse and a babysitter. So a lot of that is really out of reach right now. So just to remember those things, like make them feel special, make them feel remembered. And I think the other thing we talked about before has been just the grief factor. We all have grieved the losses of just understanding what Down syndrome means for our child. And there's that compounded grief there too, of maybe my child isn't going to make it to be an adult, and learning how to help them feel like they can make really beautiful memories in the time they have. And so all of that is really important, is just understanding the extra stress. And I think our community is extra good at that. Like I said, I've never had anyone say anything offensive
Yeah.
from our community to me, and that's not I mean, it's uncommon.
Yeah.
So um so just being extra understanding, and if the person is really overwhelmed and they don't text back, don't take offense or anything. Just assume they're extra busy.
Yeah. Do you know of a place that connects the two? Like has a list of families whose children are receiving palliative care, and the like people are listening right now like, hey, I just want to like send dinner or something, like I want to show up in the ways that you just said. Do you have that, or is that's through you? Everyone's just gonna have to contact you.
They can, but probably what you can do is, like I said, going to the getpalliativecare.org.
Okay.
If you see a program that is serving children, you can call them and ask what do these families need.
Okay.
So they might have some idea, like I have, to try to get these people some sort of safe date night outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you're a really creative person and you're really good at art, and they're looking for someone who can do an art class for them. So there's so much that could be done, and it's probably very specific to each family. But those individual organizations probably know exactly who needs to be helped. And certainly if there's someone in your church or in your circle who you think might meet these criteria, but they're not necessarily getting palliative care, it's always okay to reach out to them and just say, what can I do? Like, one of my friends just had a baby, and I was like, I'll come and clean your house. So it's things like that, just being able to remember what it's been like, like when your daughter had heart surgery, to
Right.
remember what were those needs that you had. Because a lot of times when we're deep in need, we don't really know what we need. So even coming out with suggestions on how you can help would be good too. But I think all of these organizations who are trying to serve children this way would really love just to hear that somebody cares
Mm.
out in the community and that they really do want to help. I think that would mean a lot to everybody.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. And so then tell our listeners specifically how to support Heroes Path and where else we can find you.
Yeah, so we are always looking for donations, of course. And our website is heroespathpalliativecare.org. And heroes is HERO''S, but you don't put the apostrophe in. So don't put HEROES.
Yeah.
Because you won't get there. But the hero are these children and the family. So it's their palliative care and their path. So we could always use that. I think I'm happy to interview any family who's going through this. If you want to share your story, I will share it on our social media so that you can feel like your voice is being heard. And eventually we're going to have a online auction at Christmas time. So if you're looking for buying Christmas presents, we hope to have some really good options for that. And just, I think, reaching out to me on my email if you have any needs, because I really do care, and you're not going to overwhelm me. I'm just here to listen. So I don't want anyone to feel like I can't talk to her because she's busy. I want them to know you can come and talk to me, and I'm going to make time. I think any organization in your area that is doing work like this, just like any other nonprofit right now, could really use encouragement and support financially, or just with your time. So don't be afraid to reach out to those other organizations who are serving kids like this. Remember to participate in your buddy walks this year.
Right.
Because I think a lot of them have gone virtual, and I think it's really difficult in this time to fundraise. So that's an encouragement too, just to stick with the groups that you are used to serving with, and remember them at this time too.
Very good word. And can you just tell us the we'll have links in our show notes to all of this, but your Instagram handle, a website, and your email, because you've mentioned it a few times.
Okay. The website is heroespathpalliativecare.org. Facebook is /Heroes Path Palliative Care. I believe that's the same for Instagram. I have one of my other board members managing that. Those are our main social media. And then my email is jenb, so JENB as in boy, at heroespathpalliativecare.org.
There you go. And like I said, we'll have links to all of those. And so please, if this conversation really resonated with you, and I hope it did, that you will reach out to Jen or to a local organization. Jen, thank you so much for the work that you do and for taking the time to be on the podcast with us and share your story and your work. It really means a lot. You are such a breath of fresh air and such a important soul in the world today. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate you too. You're exactly that as well. I was just thinking, I'm thinking back to when you were doing the cocktails on Facebook.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I was like, that is awesome.
Yes, if you missed it, friends, COVID started a happy hour with Heather segment on Instagram in my in my IGTV. I think we've got 6 episodes, more to come. I'm doing a dry September, so we'll have to do some mocktails. Or I could just break it for cocktail. You're so sweet. Okay, so we're gonna sign off here. Make sure you head over to the luckyfewpodcast.com. That's our website where you can connect with Jen. You can connect with all of the different organizations and links that the different organizations she mentioned. We will have links to those in our show notes. And we are always so thankful to get to work with companies who also want to shout the worth of people with Down syndrome. So if you have a product or a business that wants to help us shout the worth of people with Down syndrome, then we'd love to partner with you. And you can email us at hello@theluckyfewpodcast.com for sponsorship opportunities. A huge thank you, as always, to our editor, Josh Avis, and our producer, Val Schleter, and to everybody who has shared the Lucky Few podcast with friends and who have listened faithfully and cheered us on. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple Podcast or anywhere that you get your podcasts. And remember that you, our dear listener, supporting your loved one with Down syndrome. You are a shouter of worth and narrative shifter. So keep on keeping on. We are cheering for you. Until next time, we will see you later. Goodbye. Hey there, friends. Heather Avis here, podcast host and author of Scoot Over and Make Some Room, a book about creating a space where everyone belongs. Scoot Over and Make Some Room is my second book, and although it came out in 2019, its message of inclusion and making space in our world for people who are different than us could not be more relevant or timely. You can head to the link in our show notes, as well as to any of your favorite book retailers, to grab a copy for you and a friend or 10 friends. Heck, make a book club out of it, because if there's something we need in our world right now, it's for ways to see the worth and value in everybody around us. Let's commit to creating a world where everyone belongs.